so foreign to think that this would be a legal product.
We look at what's happening in adult beverage. There are wine, there are spirits, there are beer brands that continue to win, but there's also a sort of fourth category. And it's a very real environment where maybe people aren't drinking as much, but they still seek the ritual of socializing with beverages. And that's what the hemp category allows. People who maybe aren't consuming alcohol can now enjoy the moment while they're watching a game at Sea Dog or they're having a good laugh with their friends as we're over dinner. It all comes back to human beings. And when you lose that connection with people, that's when you start to lose market share.
Having a beer with Fred is really about getting to people's passion and what makes them tick. Having a beer and having honest, frank, clear conversation that inspires our audience is what it's about. Thank you for joining me with Having a Beer with Fred. It's really about having a beer, having a drink, relaxing. Since you're a wine guy, soon to be a vodka, Ice Pik Vodka, Alte beverage, and a variety of other things.
My name is Alan Paquette, and I grew up in Portland, Maine, but left Maine in the early 90s to move to South Florida, where I got involved and I worked with wine and spirits distributors, and then eventually with a big wine company, and worked all over the United States and driving this wine company's sales kind of early in its evolution. And then after that, I ended up going back to a distributor at an executive level, mostly in wine and mostly in luxury wine, but certainly some experience with some spirits, some Japanese products, sakes, and things like that. And then today, kind of coming back home in a sense, working with you, Fred, and working for a company that's rooted in Maine. And that has an emotional sort of tie for me. We actually met a couple of times at some events in Florida, I think at a couple of Dolphins-Patriots games. And then the former company that I worked at, we had parties or events, and I would see you there, and being from Maine, I knew who you were and I knew what you had accomplished because I was a big fan of Shipyard Brewing.
Yeah, so fast forward, today we are actually working together to try to look at where the state of our industry is, how we're going to take some of the things that I've been involved with, one mainly Ice Pik, and try to grow it into being a national brand, and grow it within the complicated, challenging spirits world at a time when everybody's saying, who needs another vodka? Ice Pik is doing very well in a number of markets. My good friend and Sean Corbett is started the company. We've survived COVID, and now we're in a position where we're growing. We're actually doing well in one area of Florida, in St. Pete, with Great Bay Distributing, and we're doing well in New Hampshire. We're doing well in Maine. We're doing good in Massachusetts, recovering from COVID because we took a lot of hits there. And
I've loved just about everything I've always done and had passion for the brands, but being able to work directly with ownership out of Maine on products that are mostly Maine driven, it really means a lot to me to be able to do that.
Yeah, born in Maine, travel the world. That's what he's basically Shipyard. The brand, the name was created in Kennebunkport Harbor, Maine, and that's where ships were built. Then they traveled the world, and we've certainly done that with Shipyard. There's been some rough seas along the way. I would say it's very interesting times. The fun thing about you is one of your first jobs was at DeMillo's. I always love hearing the stories about Tony and some of your in the early days at DeMillo's, and obviously you have worked for some of the biggest distributors probably in the world as far as U.S. distributors. But so that gives you a taste of how we might go at some of these opportunities that we have. And I truly feel Ice Pik, for example, is a world-class product. We basically make it 2 times more distilled than Tito's. It's a very similar product to Tito's, a little smoother though, but a better value price-wise. And we've had huge success with some accounts, like even in Boston, some of the tougher accounts, like what's become a great friend of mine, Roger's account at Beantown Pub, and the greatest bar, but a number of other locations, like in Florida, where we have it as a pour at a friend of yours at the Birchwood Hotel and the Canopy Bar along Beach Avenue overlooking St. Pete Harbor. So the product is positioned to grow. And you and I have had a lot of conversations about the challenges right now in the distribution channels. And we recently talked about the fact that most of the major distributors are trying to back out of the people business. They're trying to get out of having salesmen. They're trying to go to basically telesell or, computer-driven sales and not really having representatives. And you've created a model that we would try to grow across the country of having salespeople back on the street. In other words, have people that truly sell versus having just products that are, pretty much accounts feel they can't live without, the Jamesons of the world and other products that people feel. And tell us a little bit about how you come to that and why you think it might work.
Yeah, let me back up for a second because it's kind of the root of it. But it's when you talk about Ice Pik and all the things that you said about Ice Pik, yeah, you're right. Does the world need another vodka, or do wholesalers want another vodka, or does your local pub want another vodka? Well, the thing that's different about Ice Pik, that when you really get to know it, there's a soul to that brand, and there is this sort of loyalty with it. First of all, bartenders love the product. I've seen it. I've seen Ice Pik poured, and my hometown pub in Delray Beach a year and a half ago. And the bartenders loved it when I saw it in there. They go, "Have you seen this stuff? It's actually made locally. It's one of the smoothest vodkas we have." And I mean, again, the soul of Ice Pik is in the people, and it's not in the branding. And when people taste it and when people understand who's behind it, who started it, who owns it, where it's made, it's a game changer. So it's not just any vodka, but not just that. I mean, it is. I don't think I've seen anything quite like this. And somebody will probably start to coin this, but it's affordable craft. So it's truly like a craft made vodka, and it's made locally in Florida or locally in New England. It tastes great. And then it's actually affordable. So any everyday people can actually enjoy drinking this on a regular basis. So what does that lead to when we talk about what's happening in the wholesale network is yes, it's crowded, it's noisy, there's a lot of competition, and then economic conditions have got a lot of wholesalers to pull people back from the streets. And they're going more towards e-commerce platforms. I mean, there's really no secret in that. If you contact any of the big folks, they'll admit to it. It's just more efficient for them. But what happens is a brand like Ice Pik, with all that soul, loses its soul when it's sold in an e-commerce. You need human beings to tell the story and to be in front of the people who actually care about those things. Because most bars, restaurants, and retail shops actually care about story, care about quality, and care about people and want that connection. So what we're looking at with Artisan Provisions beverage company is
Which is a new name. It's a new company because this show is about entrepreneurship. And I know you necessarily haven't been an entrepreneur your whole career, but I may be infecting you a little bit with this idea because really you'd be the guy that leading this along with a few other key people and building a portfolio of brands that people opt into because they feel the passion and excitement behind those brands, not to give up too much. But one of my goals through this video is for people to be able to connect with us if they have an interest in being part of this national growth curve. So at the end of the day, there are tools, LinkedIn, there are other tools that weren't here 5 years ago. So in trying to grow a brand by keeping some of the old traditions of hand selling and people selling and communicating, we're going to try to use some unique things that make independent contractors be able to opt in as, let's call them young entrepreneurs or old entrepreneurs, people that have bandwidth, passion, and interest to buy into your vision, my vision, and then some other products that may join us with a full portfolio of beverages that ultimately can support and someone can make a living or at least subsidize their living and have some fun selling it, because that is the idea, right? There was a time when a salesman showed up. My mom ran a boarding home from our house. And I always remember her inviting the salespeople in that sit at the kitchen table, and she wouldn't do anything unless she could feed them a little bit and tell a few stories, and then leave an hour later, and she'd have always bought something, but they'd walk out with, with having a good time. So, which is part of what we've done over the years in the beer business, and you probably have done in the wine and spirits business, where you have good friends, and especially on-premise sales that happens with. But so this is going to be mapped out and shared through this video, a little bit of the secrets, and then our goal is for people to be able to say, okay, yeah, we could do this in Oklahoma, or we could do this in Washington State, or we could do this
Gotcha.
in these other places. Similar to what we did with David. We won't give David's full name right now, but he's looking at a relationship where we can distill on the West Coast, be local to that region, and provide a very similar thing where he develops the ownership and passion with us and builds that using this model, because he's also in the wine business.
Yeah. Yeah. So the model really connects like-minded people, like you were saying. So it starts with independent contractors who are very passionate about craft and artisan brands, and it leads them to their group of contacts and friends and associates that also equally appreciate like the smaller craft artisan brands. And as independent contractor, unlike maybe your typical wholesaler, you're not going to be measured every day. They're not going to be measured every day in the miles that they drive or the places that they see. They're on their own terms. These are folks that are self-starters. They're entrepreneurial. They have a given passion for it. That's their motivation. But there's also additional motivation where we're able to offer a competitive package for these independent contractors so that they have a safety net and they have some guarantees when it comes to some of their expenses or it comes to some of their base earnings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thought process. And, at the end of the day, there are different models. There might be a model where somebody already has 3 or 4 brands and he wants to bolt on this, and it might be a different structure, right? Similar. So, I mean, the nice thing right now is we're building it.
There's
Right?
a lot of flexibility, and we're going to learn building it, and in different markets, we'll have different kind of nuances to the market, and they'll have different people and different kinds of people. But the one thing that's the same is that there are first of all, there are consumers, and then there are also restaurants, bars, and retailers that definitely care and want to learn more about craft products, and they want to be in the know. They want to know what's new or maybe what's not making it past the noise of all the big companies' spends in their advertising or their media blitzes, where people again want to get in contact with real stories, real brands, real people. And we're going to match that passion from an independent contractor sales to those accounts that are looking for that. And then the next step, of course, is to the brands that have authenticity to them, that have real stories, have real place behind them, because that is valued and that's not going to go.
Well, yeah, and you're mainly because a lot of brands can't afford to be able to have their own full sales force, and with our goal, it's really to fill niches, so that we can experience.
I think that's a really important piece, because when you start looking at some of these artisan and craft brands, they're certainly entrepreneurs, and these are owners that maybe have just a husband and wife team or family members or sometimes down to one person for the entire country who's also making the gin, or the person's brewing the beer. And with that doesn't come these huge budgets that you get from some of these much bigger companies. And so we provide a service not only for these smaller artisan producers, but also for the customers who actually truly appreciate that smaller artisan producer.
Right. Oh, it's an excellent starting point. And, I think at the end of the day, we have to look at the landscape and be as realistic as we can. We're also going to try to stretch the areas of norms to make something happen in a very, I would say, challenging time in the spirit business and in business in general, mainly because, especially in the business, the beverage business has been I would say almost every category has got a number of competitors that are, if you look back 10 years ago, there wasn't nearly the number of beers in the market. There weren't nearly the number of wines. There weren't nearly the number of spirits. And that's why you'll see some degree of consolidation and trying to pivot and find ways that you can grow brands at a time when other brands are probably exiting, scaling down, or retreating.
Yeah, and there's like the business, yes, we're seeing what we're seeing, the challenges in the business, but the fact remains that people are going to continue to enjoy their glass of wine, enjoy their martini, enjoy their craft brew. And that's going to continue. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. And there's still a lot of volume there. What is happening is there are mostly some of the bigger companies that have lost touch, in my opinion, with the consumer, are some of them that are declining. And it all comes back to people. It all comes back to human beings. And when you lose that connection with people, that's when you start to lose market share. And that comes back again to what we're doing, Fred, is we're actually going to connect real people with real producers, with customers that appreciate this.
One other big area that we're working on is Alte beverage, which is a whole new category of hemp-derived THC.
There are challenges, but there are also bright spots. There are wine, there are spirits, there are beer brands that continue to win, but there's also a sort of fourth category. And it's a very real environment where maybe people aren't drinking as much, but they still seek the ritual of socializing with beverages. And that's what the hemp category allows. And what we're doing with Alt is it's not necessarily for your chronic cannabis user. It's for somebody who maybe today is deciding not to have an alcoholic beverage, or maybe they're training for a race or something and they're cutting down, or they just want to try something different for a day. So the dosages are much more, I wouldn't say smaller, they're much more manageable doses, and Alt is meant to be sessionable. It's meant to be something that you can have 2 or 3 in a session. And it's
so talking about that, I didn't originally think that Alt would have gotten you excited as a beverage. And, basically you came to Maine, we had that discussion, you got some of the product, you experienced it, and you did get excited about it, and you are excited about it.
Yeah, it's just very exciting because it hits on so many different things that folks are looking for. First of all, it's an alternative to alcohol for right now, but it's got a nice buzz to it, and it's got a controllable buzz, an elevating buzz. But it's also it's on a spectrum that's a little more healthier than some other things. It's lower in sugar. It's 100% natural. There's no artificial flavor.
Someone just came into the audience. He's actually the GM of Treasure Island, which we're going to launch the Alt beverage. Hey, Charlie, grab your beer and come over here. Pull up a chair.
Hey, how's it going?
We spoke earlier on the phone today, Charlie. Good to see your face. Good to see you in person.
Charlie, what do you think? Is there any apprehension on your part for, bringing a product like Alt into the restaurant?
Alt beverage. I really haven't learned a lot about it yet. Read your emails this morning. Tried it out.
You tried it out?
I did. We did try it a couple weeks ago. Hunter brought some in. We tasted it.
You loved it, right?
Yeah, of course. A whole new product. We'll see how well it goes. I mean, we are on the beach, so that's green peace and love. And
Yeah.
Charlie, here's what I like about Alt that I noticed, and it blew my mind to see it, is that when I was talking to other restaurants and bars that were pouring it, I said, well, who's buying this? And there really wasn't a set age group, but they said they'd get like 3 or 4 people come in, and a couple people have a beer, another person maybe has a cocktail, and then that fourth person gets an Alt, and they might have 2 or 3 of those over the course of 3 or 4 hours. Now, what's important about that is what I've heard from so many different bartenders and restaurant folks is, normally if that person wasn't drinking, then they're drinking a Coca-Cola or an iced tea, or, it's a lot more enjoyable experience for the person that's hanging out. right? To be able to have something that actually has flavor and actually has a subtle effect on them. And then let's be honest, as a business owner, you keep that person in the restaurant hanging out with their friends who are having alcoholic beverages, and you're upselling them out of a better experience than an iced tea and into something with a little more flavor, which is
Yeah,
kind
absolutely. And one thing I've really noticed this year, we put the mocktails on our menu, and our beverage sales, our NA beverage sales have gone through the roof, probably up 60-70%. So that, I think, and exactly what you said, is keeping people there longer that don't drink or have, can still sit there and have a good time with their friends. So I think this beverage will absolutely do that for sure.
And what's crazy for me is to think that, I mean, really, THC in very moderation for people that are developed, like somebody over 21, the effect of it is just a function of maybe the difference between what a wine would do, what a shot of tequila would do. I mean, everybody likes a different style of drink, whether it's beer, whether it's wine, whether it's hard alcohol, and this is an alternative, like uh, thing that is it's definitely an altering drink. If if you're used to having a lot of THC, it's not going to affect you as much, but a little bit, it may affect you more if you're not used to THC, right?
and the thing that's great about it too is because it's in a liquid form, it's different than taking something that's an edible. If it actually, the way it's metabolized in your body, I won't get into the chemistry of it, but it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to feel the effect. So similar to like an alcoholic beverage, now you can control your experience, right? So it takes 10 to 15 minutes for an onset, and then it lasts about an hour. So you could have one beverage in the course of a half an hour, 20 minutes, see how you feel, and then you could have another beverage, or you could choose not to, depending on how you feel. Which you can't do that with edibles. And it's a lot more social in the sense like alcoholic beverages, where people who maybe aren't consuming alcohol can now enjoy the moment while they're watching a game at Sea Dog, or they're having a good laugh with their friends as we're over dinner. They get to participate.
And Sea Dog has something for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
So it really from all ages, and because it's so foreign to me especially, to think growing up that this would be a legal product.
Yeah, right.
You never would have believed it, right?
No.
People went to jail for it. So, but it's no different than alcohol, really. I mean, when you look at prohibition, you look at these other times, and at the end of the day, it's something for everybody, and that's what we're trying to do. But also quality. It's solvent free, which very few are solvent free, and it's low calorie, 30 calories, and it tastes really good. So, and I'm not somebody that drinks them all the time, but because I like a beer, I also like whiskey sometimes. But that's the thing, variety's the spice of life, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to do really, really well here in Florida.
Yeah.
You know, as you said, all the edibles and everything that has hit the market in the last couple years down here, little shops are popping up everywhere, the medicinal, and it'll all be legal and recreational soon. I'm sure, like a lot of the other states. So
Yeah, so we're really in a unique situation in Florida and in Maine, that we already started selling in Maine. Some of our locations have sold a good amount of it. Some are less engaged. I think it's a function of what the staff does. So educating the staff is going to be a big, big thing, because they have to feel comfortable that it's a product that somebody can have one or two or three of. They can have it, and then they can have a beer if they want. It's not going to kill them. It's a sense of people are responsible for themselves. You should never overdo anything, especially alcohol. But that's what the world we live in right now. And I think the nice thing about Sea Dog is a variety of customers, and we have a qualified, competent staff. We'll train the hunter's job with your direction, and the rest of the team, Danielle and Katie, to train everybody on it. But we got the video content. We've also got access to our team that's going to focus here, because a lot of the people in the area look at what we do and sometimes follow. So
Yeah, I spoke with one of the representatives on the phone earlier today from Alt Beverage, and he's actually going to come in and do classes with. Oh, that was with you? Okay. All right. So yeah, he's going to come and
he looks better on the phone. I do look better on the.
he said he was going to come in and do a lot of training for the staff and make sure everybody's prepared to answer anyone's questions. So that will help tremendously.
Yeah. So life keeps moving forward. I'm excited about, and you're going to be back down here on the 12th of May, and we'll spend some time in the market, and keep moving on all fronts. But I think that gives you a good idea about some of the new things we're involved in, and the future will be about trying to link additional people that have a passion and desire to grow and be part of something that's fun, interesting, and doing it the right way, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers, Alan.
Cheers.
Cheers, Fred. Have a great day.
Cheers, Charles.